Welcome to Three Bros, episode 54. Do we want to keep going with what we were just chatting about, or do you want to let Chad go first? Because I kind of listed him first in the message.
We'll go with Chad. Chad, what do you got for us?
So I read this quickly when I posted it initially. So it's it's slightly different than what I thought it was. So it says essentially the headline. Oh, I got to share my screen. Hang on.
Not necessarily. Just keep going. You're good. You're fine. Go.
Hang on. Just gonna do it, bro. I'm just gonna share the screen.
I got it. Go.
Oh, you got it? Okay, appreciate you. So essentially what it says is that Canadian officials are mulling an attack on U.S. Pharma, says Ottawa lawyer. See, this is where I was a little confused because nobody from the Canadian government came out and said this.
And they wouldn't. Why would they?
Right, sure. It was this well, that's what I was under the impression of. So I thought it was a little bit of a bigger deal than I thought, but turns out this is a speculation of an Ottawa lawyer. But essentially, Canada could potentially be, I guess I should say, thinking about allowing pharmaceutical companies in Canada to make generic copies of drugs, U.S. pharmaceutical drugs that are protected by patents. So I guess the idea is Canada would stop respecting specific patent rights on drugs from U.S. pharmaceuticals and would just let their own pharmaceutical companies just make generic versions of that. Obviously at a huge cut to cost. Yeah, that's crazy. Especially because we do a lot of medical research in the United States, and we do have a lot of patents on drugs in particular. So I don't know. I just thought that was very interesting. That would really ramp things up tension-wise between the States and Canada, for sure.
Oh, sure. If you're gonna do a lot of saber rattling, then
because it's a power move, man. I mean, we all know that the Pharma has their own lobbying, and they spend a lot of money lobbying. What does it say here? 26 million in 2017 alone. Just throwing money because obviously they are set up where they make a lot of money in this country because of those very patents. So it'd be interesting. I don't know. That's a very interesting angle to be coming from, I guess.
Oh, it's a savage move. And if you're gonna, slap tariffs on other countries, then they're gonna figure out how to retaliate. And this would be a very savage way to do so.
It is a very savage way to do so. Because countries have done this before. Countries have done this before to the United States. They threatened it, and the U.S. backed off completely.
We just have to wait and see on just how all this plays out, because I mean, I guess you can. I don't even want to say I guess. I know you can still be in the mindset that like, oh, maybe this is like a negotiating tactic. Let's see. So it's like, all right, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know how this plays out too well, and I actually read a quote the other day. Man, I need to probably source it, but I'm not gonna. You can just do it yourself. But I read a quote. I read somewhere the other day that Donald Trump said. The quote was basically like, China pays for the tariffs that I slap on them, and people were just like, no, that's not how that works, dude.
It's not quite how tariffs work.
Oh, not even close. So
this is the pharma stuff. I know we were talking a while ago about how, in my opinion, patents on those are pretty destructive. Anyone want to take a guess at one of the most commonly prescribed medications, Viagra, or specifically, what's it called here? Sildenafil. How long that's been patented for?
That's a U.S. drug?
I don't
It's
know.
a U.S. drug, yes.
I bet there's extensions and stuff longer than there should have been.
Oh, for sure. Well, 1996.
Nice.
That stuff has been patented almost as long as Norundithus has been alive.
Yeah, those are facts, bro.
But my point here is like, if you can patent something for 20 some odd years, especially something like You know, and I'm obviously
Viagra's
tongue in cheek here. I'm using Viagra as an example. Yes,
Right.
I understand that.
You don't need
but the point
Viagra.
here is that if you can make it that long, patenting something like that, like what other drugs that are really truly life altering, life needing, or life preserving that you can do the same thing with in America? That's what frustrates me specifically about pharmaceuticals. And I know that's just a small chunk of the healthcare system, but I still think it's significant to consider those things.
I just thought it was fascinating that, and it's addressed in this article. Let's see. The World Trade Organization agreement, known as TRIPS, Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, is restrictive of compulsory licensing, but it is not prohibitive, which means that Canada can do this, and they could put a big finger up to the U.S., and they said, you have no legal grounds of which you could pursue us to stop doing this. It's 100% legal. 100% legal.
And what are you going to do? Invade Canada?
Exactly, right. Like, there's nothing that they would do.
Right.
I mean,
actually, the only benefit would be is that millions of dollars would be poured into lobbying in Canada's country to try to sway that the other way. Which I imagine would be unsuccessful, but sounds like there's just nothing but benefit to Canada, really.
So they can export the drugs too, like, isn't that what it says? It's crazy.
They probably couldn't sell them in the U.S., but
I wouldn't think so.
There's plenty of states that border Canada.
Well, there's plenty of countries alone that probably consume our pharmaceuticals. That would love to have a cheap generic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, let's see.
Yeah, I thought I talked about it. I thought I talked about it in the article, but I'm not sure.
Here we go. Let's see. In 2010, Brazil threatened to ignore U.S. patent and intellectual property rights in the midst of a dispute over U.S. cotton subsidies. Before Brazil took action, the U.S. backed down. And there's an example of two other countries that pulled out this power move, I guess, and the U.S. backed down both times.
Yeah, but that's not in the age of Trump, is it?
No, but this is different though, because now you have a lot of people in Congress who have a lot of butthurt lobbyists. Because I mean, I would bet that pharmaceutical companies in the United States would stand to lose a huge portion of their profits if this was a thing. Let's see. When Antigua and Barbuda threatened to suspend copyright protections on U.S. intellectual property because of U.S. interference in the tiny island's online gambling services, the U.S. caved. There has to be a huge consequence here for the U.S. to back away from stuff like that just because they threatened. And that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I don't think Trump has the clout to pull that off. To say, you know what? Fuck you, Canada, do it. We're not going to back.
Why not?
I don't think he has the clout to do that. I think he'd have a lot of people tapping on his shoulder saying, "Hey, man, come on, bro." I don't know.
I just can do whatever he wants.
Well, he can't, but
oh sure, anything he wants.
Anything, dude. I just thought this was interesting. Dude. And if you asked me 4 years ago what Canada-U.S. relations would look like, I mean,
oh sure,
I definitely would not have predicted this.
Yeah. I don't really. I kind of want to go back and see who he was railing against on the campaign trail, because it's kind of just ended up that he's just kind of gone to war with everybody in every single trade deal. And like, I know you guys heard about how like him and Mexico came to a deal
on NAFTA. Yeah,
on NAFTA. But a few things. If Canada's not a part of any deal, it doesn't matter. 1, 2, Mexico is having a very Bernie-like figure take over the presidency in January. So this is the outgoing president, basically lame duck president, making new trade deals on behalf of the Mexican people. I don't think they're going to like that. So I don't really know how that's going to hold up in Mexico. That'd be like if Kavanaugh doesn't make it through confirmation until the lame duck session and they just like push him through during the lame duck session. That'd be the most outrageous thing that anybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, Well, that after if the Democrats win the Senate and then they push them through, that would be outrageous. But
right,
you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's like a new, very left-wing president. Who knows what he's gonna do? So the whole thing's like, he goes to war with everybody. Sure, the one victory you can point to right now is kind of the Mexico deal. But one, like I said, who knows it's going to hold up for those reasons. And two, a lot of people said like it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that big of a change. It was actually just like a pay raise for Mexican workers. So, I mean, you take it with a grain of salt because I read a few articles on it, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if it was a revolutionary deal that would help the American people a whole bunch, then like it would just be more clear and we would know about
Obviously,
it.
the mainstream, the lamestream media report on Donald Trump's victories. Because why would they? They're too busy talking about Russia, dude.
Yeah. They're too liberal, dude. It's crazy.
Do you see Trump actually making any headway on these trade wars? Do you see him coming out the other side? Actually,
I would say no, but we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I would say no at this point, but
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah,
I mean, Canada. There were reports earlier this week. Canada's NDC, Canada's foreign state secretary or whatever the hell they call it, negotiating with Trump's administration. So I don't know. There was a deadline too. I don't really know who imposed that, but it's like some sort of deadline in October as well. So we'll see if they get it done.
Probably like a deadline within NAFTA.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to China, though, I don't really know what kind of game he's playing. Walmart just announced today that most of their products, not most of their products, but like 80 to 90% of the products that he just slapped 10% tariffs on the other week are like affect Walmart products. And they were like, a lot of basic goods in our stores are going to go up 10 to 15.
Of course, dude.
Percent in price, right?
Walmart is essentially a shop of Chinese manufactured goods.
Yeah,
it's literally it.
Right? No, you're not wrong.
So I don't know. I mean, if Trump does good, then he does some good. Fair enough. I just don't see this. I just don't see him having the leadership or the clout to pull any of this off. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about our next section here, Caleb. If you want to
really quickly, it would have just been wonderful if they didn't cut taxes for just corporations, and they for everybody that makes $100,000 and less.
Cyril, is good. Is good done still good though?
Sorry, go ahead.
If he still does do some good though, you can't deny that some good was done.
Go ahead.
Right?
I don't know what you're saying.
What are you saying? You're saying even if he does win on trade, he still fucked us somewhere else? Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I wouldn't expect him to go to bat. At this point, I don't expect him to go to bat for working people, is kind of what I'm saying. Right. Even with his trade policies. Yeah. Gotcha. His trade policies aren't going to be good for the average Walmart shopper, which is like your lower middle class, if not like poverty stricken shopper. Like, come on. These people are the ones, not a handout, but a hand up. We need to help them out, you know? Like, Jesus Christ.
I'd be interesting to hear like if Target says anything about it, right? Like the running joke is always you shop at Target just so you don't have to go to Walmart. But I have to imagine that their things would be affected too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, sure. Oh, and more than just those two, but those two disproportionately.
Well, I guess
Walmart disproportionately for sure. Yeah.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make here, though, Cyril, is that like, yes, your Walmart, typically speaking, is going to have your lower middle and lower class type of economic situations for families that shop there. Yes. Whereas in Target, it's kind of your maybe legit middle or maybe upper middle class folks, and I wonder like how much the impact is to those.
Target,
Target.
I think you I'm not stepping on anybody that shops at Target. It's a great.
I know what Caleb's saying. Caleb's not wrong. I would say Walmart isn't even middle class shoppers. Like I wouldn't even say that. As far as like people who consistently shop at that store for like groceries consistently, like. I mean, I wouldn't be too sure about that. But I think he was right. Like Target's probably like actual middle class, right? Or maybe even upper middle class. That's fine.
And again, the
like
point
there's a lot of people that shop at Target. But poor people can shop at Target too. Go ahead.
It's still all shipped from China.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like you guys are missing my point. If typically speaking, on average, the person who shops at Target makes $10,000, $20,000 more a year than the average person that shops at Walmart, what is the overall impact to that family or that group, right? Because at the end of the day, they're all middle or lower class, right?
Well, everybody's still a bit more broke than they should have been.
That's the question, are they?
Well, they will.
Well, hold on, that's weird. I put that weird. What is the overall, like, are people that shopping at Target really seeing and feeling that?
They'll probably notice it, but they won't feel it as much as somebody who's like only shops at Walmart and is of a lower income. I mean, obviously that's going to bite a bit more out of your wallet there.
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, regardless, we're all still just paying a bit more for our stuff, which is probably good. You know, we love our consumerism too much. There's a lot of shit we buy from China that nobody should be buying.
Okay, if you look at it from that perspective, like, fine. But no, if you look at it from, hey, these are working class people and they don't need to have more of their income taken away perspective, then no, it's not fine. But
well, I'm saying just things that we don't necessarily need to buy. I'm not talking about struggling to buy stuff that you need.
I'm talking about people who are struggling. Dude, there's like 40% of people in this country who live in poverty. I'm pretty sure
I'm not saying there aren't.
Sure. Go ahead. I'm just saying, there's plenty of people who don't have the luxury to just like.
Are you saying
like,
that,
who
that
don't
Americans don't love their
purchases.
Consumerism? Who invented?
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying.
Who
that.
did it, dude?
Look, I'm not saying that. I'm just.
Iran.
All right. I'm yourself.
I was just putting a snarky little comment in there about Americans' compulsive love for shopping. That's all.
Sure.
Obviously, Black Friday is a North Korea thing, you dipshit.
And I was talking about a minority.
That's a different kind of Friday.
And I was talking about a minority of Americans who truly do struggle so much that they can't even afford any luxury purchases in their life, which is still a minority. Like, we're a rich country, but those people still exist. There's
no luxury purchases at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, people who are struggling. Yeah. All right. What does luxury purchase mean? Like, does one soda mean luxury purchase? Come on, let's not be ridiculous here.
Laundry detergent, that's a luxury.
Oh, come on. Stop
it does.
Playing.
It means that for the rest of the world in a lot of cases.
Okay,
yes,
but we can't be
all about perspective.
Okay, listen.
Well, no, I'm supporting Cyril's point here. That we live in a country that's so rich that, like, what is a luxury purchase? Like, to you and I, having a soda is not by any means a luxury purchase, but in a lot of places in the world it is.
I agree, but that doesn't excuse the inequality we have in this country. It's not like we can't do anything about doing better in this country just because, like, the poorest here are better off than the rest of the world, which is true in a lot of ways.
It's true in almost every way, but okay.
Well, did you watch the
tell me
videos I was posting about that Congressperson Richard Ojeda, who's running for Democrat running for Congress?
I watched the video.
He literally says in the video that there are some kids that he's met and seen in West Virginia who live worse off than the than kids he saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's how bad West Virginia is.
Yeah, bro.
So this is a big country where people are suffering. And by the way, if you want to keep watching those videos,
come on, go ahead.
I'm just saying, dude, I'm just saying, like, that's fine. If you want to question that man, I just keep watching his videos. Like, he's so genuine. He is straight from the heart. Like, he is from West Virginia. You're going to question his knowledge of West Virginia? Go ahead.
I'm not questioning his knowledge of West Virginia. I'm questioning what he's really saying.
Okay, like, and go ahead. What are you
saying? That there are some really bad parts in America.
There are some really poor children.
Not, but come on.
Southside Chicago.
Tell me that those
some neighborhoods
often.
Let me show you some neighborhoods in Detroit, dude.
Sure, exactly.
I hear you. Again, I hear you, but here's the difference if you want to compare one to another, right? That kid at least still gets to go to a school.
Okay.
Yes? That kid still has, no matter how small it is, a relatively better opportunity than most kids in the world to pull themselves out of that situation. Not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying, statistically speaking, they have a better chance, yes or no? Now, I understand the point of
yes, but I'm not interested in having a debate about I'm not interested in comparing any American to anybody else besides Americans. Like we're talking about America. We can live in our culture and deal with our culture first. Come on, yo. We can't just like not let people struggle every day while Jeff Bezos has over $100 billion just because, they're still better off than people in the rest of the world. No, that's not appropriate. We can do better, and we've got to figure out how to do that.
I'm not saying we can't do better. I'm saying put it in perspective is all I'm saying.
That's fine, but we can also put it in just the American perspective and deal with our own problems first and not just compare it to the rest of the world and say, well, just because she's struggling to put food on the table because she's a single mother of 3, she's better off than people in the Sahara. Like, okay, but she's still struggling and we're a really rich country. We can't do anything about that. We really can't do anything about that.
We can, and we do.
And that's an exaggeration. I don't even have an example. I'm just saying. That's all.
Sorry, when did Jeff Bezos get so goddamn rich?
That's what happened.
I didn't even realize. I know it's stocks.
Right, and that's the other thing I was going to push back a little bit on Cyril on is that's not all like straight fucking cash money in the bank type.
Why isn't that value? I don't care. It's still value, right? It couldn't have been even more evenly dispersed with him getting maybe 40% of that fortune and the rest of the top to bottom.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying keep it in perspective. Like that's not just cash money he's sitting on.
Right.
It's just projected value. If he were to, and he can't sell that at that specific price all at once, you would never be able to sell it like that.
He can't. Okay.
My heart bleeds for him.
Well, nobody has that kind of money.
Right. I was about to.
You can't actually do that.
Right. Well,
so I get what you're saying. Projected value is important, but you also have to keep it in perspective.
There are some expensive buyouts these days of $30, $40, $50 billion. So I wouldn't know. I don't know.
They're all financed.
Right. That doesn't
here tell me that that's cash money.
You're right, Caleb. My heart is bleeding for Jeff Bezos that he doesn't.
My heart is bleeding.
Liquid cash.
Oh my god. You guys are unbelievable.
All right, bro. Tell us about this libertarian.
Oh, I want to hear Cyril shit first.
Oh, we're going nowhere here. Come on now.
Wait, what about what we were just talking about, or
no, about your article?
Oh yeah.
I thought you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of explained it when I wrote about it the first time. Just my base issue with this is that we are taking. Sure. You know that's what I love to do every week. But my basic.
Surprised you didn't use that as the headline this time.
Well, you said you were unhappy with it. My basic issue with this article is just the fact that it's taking away a lot of dollars that go investing into literal Americans to invest them to, not round up. This isn't like a concentration camp necessarily, but to store basically all of these extra children, immigrants, and I think immigrants in general, just because they have more of a zero tolerance policy now. So they have to store more and more of these people and it just keeps growing. And so they're just taking dollars from freaking preschool for kids, the Center for Disease and Control Prevention, the National Institutes of Health, Child Health Insurance Plus. What in the world, dude? I'm just upset because it's taking dollars away from places that are actually invested in American people and things, and it's going towards this. I don't even care about the whole refugee thing. That's a whole different debate. Not that I don't care, but that's a whole different debate. It's just that the diverting of dollars from these programs that actually help Americans first is just doesn't make any sense to me, man. It just saddens me when I read stuff like this. I wish all politicians were truthful in what things cost and how they would be funded, and they were transparent about that. If you want to spend a bunch of money on a zero tolerance policy, but now we have to store a whole bunch of extra people and it's going to cost a lot more money, then be honest about it and tell us how you're going to pay for that when we're running a deficit. We need to know. And that's not just the only thing. It goes both ways. It goes both ways on so many ways there. It does. Go ahead.
Do you think, and this is my impression overall of politicians in general, when they say things like that and they implement these plans, they're not the ones that actually have any fucking clue what the true fallout for these things are. It's only months later, after the bean counters, for lack of a better word, actually have to break it down. They go, oh shit, we don't have enough money for this.
I think that's true.
I think that's way more often than not.
Sure. I think that's more true in this administration. I think this administration just kind of, because it has, and this isn't even a shot at them that much. It's just the honesty of the situation. It has a lot less, because of the way Donald Trump rose to power. He has no experience. it just has a lot less experience as far as politics, his team and stuff. And like they've made a lot of missteps. But I think that if it's a seasoned administration and the president is someone who's been in politics for a long time, like any of the other presidents we've had, I think that if that's the case, then that's more like targeted. Like, you know what you're doing. I think maybe the Trump administration can claim that they like make mistakes and trip over them, but other administrations, like, I don't know, man. Like you think about Iraq, like, why did we go? Like, why did we go?
Saddam Hussein was a terrible dictator.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's not what they told. That's not what we were told from the beginning. But I think, is that not a legitimate like reason to go there? Like, I don't know. It's not. But
well, okay, that's not what I meant to say. It is too. Sure. By the way, first and foremost, what I'm still saying though is that when it comes to these policies and when it comes to these things that politicians are like, hey, this is a good idea, we should do this. Not barely a single time do I ever see like some kind of a white paper or some kind of a study or some kind of a finance breakdown specifically to do this. I don't ever see this stuff.
When they were trying to pass Trump care, the CBO always scores everything from the tax bill to the Trump care. The CBO.
And did they score this? Did they score this?
So that's just one example at the congressional level. This is the executive branch, and I'm pretty sure this is the kind of program that Trump and his allies didn't want people to actually know what was going on. I think this has just been exposed by journalists and stuff. Like, pretty sure they weren't really that transparent about the separation of children and and they don't do it anymore. I don't think they do it anymore. I'm not sure, but they said they don't do it anymore.
They stopped it.
Yeah, there you go. But there's these camps are still growing, so they're not separating children anymore.
Well, because there are still unaccompanied.
It probably affects that, but that's I still don't know. I don't know. This is just a freaking crap show. Because there's a lot of power the executive branch has when it comes to how these people are being housed and what they can do, and clearly they can divert funds if they want, which they have. So then also, immigration laws have to be written and passed by Congress. You can't just do what you want with the executive branch. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because each party is fractured inside of the party for immigration in many different ways. So it's hard to pass anything, no matter what party you are. So the whole thing's a shit show. What are you going to do?
Well, I don't think that's the answer.
No, I agree. It's just
sit here and talk about it and figure it out.
I agree. On immigration, I think that the current administration probably gets more flack than they deserve. It's just it's harder. The separation thing was grotesque, and I don't know why they did that. And I'm glad they stopped that.
Yeah, that was dumb.
Yeah, that was super grotesque, and I don't know whose idea that was, but you are dumb. You need to be fired.
100%.
Whatever you are. Yeah. No, not Jeff.
I think
it's that vampire guy.
It'll take me a minute to source that for you. It was not Miller. It was Sessions' policy. I promise you.
Okay. Well, it was definitely Justice. It was definitely a Justice Department policy.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe it could have been Steve Miller pushed it. You never know.
Maybe, but Jeff Sessions obviously is the one who is responsible for that, more or less.
Yeah.
It's his department.
No, you're right.
And it was a new policy because we were not doing that.
Sure. Right.
I'm amazed that there are so many unaccompanied children who flee to the United States. It's crazy.
So a lot of you haven't really done too much research on this, or
in terms of
from what I've read, I don't know, just yourself. Because from what I've read, what it is these countries that are south of the Mexican border know that the U.S. policy is for kids that are fleeing from south of Mexico who make it to the United States, like somehow, some way, they are automatically granted like refugee status and they're placed in a home. And things are so bad in certain areas down there that parents are literally sending their kids in caravans together by themselves without adults north to the border, hundreds of miles.
El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala.
Because things are so bad in their country, right?
I mean, to be fair,
imagine how bad things are in your country that you just tell your kid, like, you have to go somewhere else, hundreds of miles away. That's nuts. Go ahead.
That is nuts.
Chad, I thought you were going to say something, but
oh, sorry. I thought you were saying go ahead to Caleb.
I was just naming off countries where it's pretty shitty right now, from my understanding.
So the
Venezuela, I think, is having some issues.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Well, they just don't have food to eat.
That's kind of a big fucking issue.
No. Whereas these other countries have like rampant gang violence. Venezuela just kind of sucks at providing basic
Dude,
necessities.
Venezuela had a person in power that took too much of it, and whenever you concentrate too much power, it gets corrupt. The shit is like a broken record, I swear. Like,
welcome to socialism.
Well, not socialism.
Shots fired.
Well, what's the right wing version? Go ahead. There's a right wing version.
Oh, it's fascism.
There you go. It's on both sides.
We're not saying it doesn't exist.
That was attacked by Chad. Also not a socialist. Go ahead, Chad.
That's what I was gonna say. I was saying God. There was no God there.
I know.
I'm sure you're not defending socialism. There's
no
reason
not
you
at
should
all.
take offense.
Well,
to that.
I'm a social democrat. Go look it up.
Just means you talk a lot and you're a Democrat, right?
A social democrat? No, that's not what that means. No, a social democrat basically means you believe in capitalism, but you also believe that the government should have a very strong, heavy, equal-handed hand as private interest does in making sure things are fair for the people. That the economy we build works for the worker up, not just from rich people down.
The worker up. You want to? That sounds like communism.
It's very pro-union. I'm very pro-union. It's not communism. Relax. Listen. Oh my gosh.
Gotti.
Okay, Caleb, here's the scenario. You have a company.
Go ahead. Sure, I do. That's amazing. How do they get that company?
You have a company,
market?
And you have 50,000 employees.
Don't jump to the punchline.
And you're in charge. And when you're in charge and these employees are not unionized, they literally just basically come to you and they negotiate one-on-one. Every single one of them, they're on their own island. And that's how they negotiate their pay and their benefits. Do you think in the long run that is better than the bunch of them banding up and trying to negotiate with the owners and the ownership? Or do you think it's better?
So that specific question is absolutely a loaded question, right? Because what are we talking about here? Are we talking about the United States government? Because we do have laws in place that say you cannot discriminate, right?
Oh, sure.
So with those laws in place, I would say that it's better to do one-on-one negotiation every time.
Do you think that a law in place that says do not discriminate actively makes it so that there is zero discrimination in our world?
No, of course not. But it certainly stymies the attempt for me to discriminate. Yeah.
Why?
Because I would get my fucking pantsuit off.
No, I was making fun of the noise you made just there.
Yeah, I thought Chad was.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. You
said that
it's very
expensive
of Cyril swooping in to say something, but he didn't, so it just sounded out of place.
Let's say you're a felon, ex-convict who served 2 years in jail, but did your time, got out, and the only thing you can find is pretty shit work where you get paid minimum wage, not many hours a week.
But is that the fault of the employer that there's not many hours in a week?
No, I honestly I
do a little better job than that then.
Pat's just got smoked, by the way. Sorry, continue.
Listen, Chad's making fun of you ruined my train of thought. I had an end point there.
I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good. I just wanted to be
lobbing grenades tonight.
Nah, you're good, man. I did have somewhere to go with that, but whatever.
I think I get what
you have any
saying. Like there's
arguments
in which there's an argument to be made. For me, I'm not disagreeing with you. Sure. For me, what I'm saying is that for the most part, unions have outlived their purpose because now we have government in place. We do have laws in place that do give power to the worker. And I'll give you an example specifically. Like I work at a Fortune 500 company in which I was hired at a specific pay rate. And then they went and they did an audit and they realized that I, among many other people, were getting paid too little for the work that I was doing compared to my counterparts. And what did I get? I got a raise to match that appropriate amount of money for said amount of work, even though I had already negotiated a given rate. Now, why did they do that?
See, this is anecdotal.
Number one, you would hope. Sure. It is anecdotal, but the point here is that if I'm getting paid less than somebody else for doing the same amount of work, I have a leg to stand on to take my employer to court. And instead of doing that, because of those laws, my employer does a yearly audit to make sure that people are being paid fairly and adequately for the work being done across the board.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
That is because...
Oh, sure.
That is because the unions, over many, many decades, ever since they were formed in the early turn of the century type of time, well, maybe not even then. The work that was done then by those people, right, sponsoring bills and getting government involved in workers' rights has allowed it to be this way. And unfortunately, to some degree, they've kind of worked themselves out of a place in our society because effectively the government is like almost a union to some degree.
I think you're talking from a very privileged position sitting in New York
I agree.
State.
I agree.
I think you should talk to the teachers who get shafted in Oklahoma and Virginia. And
okay, so
they're now trying. They're now trying to form.
Whoa! You're talking about having a union negotiating with the government. That's a completely different can of worms than private business. You're trying to negotiate with people who make the laws. Like you're fucked from the beginning, right? It is different. It's absolutely
different. A large, powerful entity. The government is a large, powerful entity. The
government is significantly more powerful in this case in this country. Don't give me that horse shit.
State governments are who decide teacher pay, not federal government. And state governments, they're
significantly stronger than most corporations.
We have, I think it's 2 or 3 companies right now today that are valued more than $1 trillion. Disagree that.
Hold on. You cannot measure power in dollars.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
No,
you can at least
disagree with you.
You can at least come to a reasonable conclusion.
That's why I have no power.
Yes, you can.
You have no power, Chad, because you have yet to learn how to influence people.
I think we get into semantics.
Money is influence.
Money is one form of influence.
The strongest government form of influence.
I disagree completely.
Wow, I want to. If unions don't have their place in society today, do you think everything is set up in the economy the way it should be? Did you like the tax cut, Caleb? Do you think everything is where it's going?
Wait, hold on, time out. What does a tax cut have to do with a union?
No, I'm just saying in general. I'm trying to.
No. We're talking about unions. Don't sidetrack it.
No, I mean, first of all, I guess we can talk about whatever we want, and if you want to refuse to answer, that's no problem. I'm asking you this question. If you don't want to answer it, that's no problem.
No. Specifically, I feel like you're trying to make the point for a union. No, I'm just going completely off topic.
No. I'm trying to get. I don't even care about the union discussion.
Oh, okay.
I seriously, from your libertarian mindset, from your, yes, part of it is your anti-union right now mindset in this day and age. Do you think that inequality is not a problem or is? And if it is, then how do we fix it? How does this problem go away if not give more workers power? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I know I asked it a little weird, but that was the end of the question.
Yeah.
Like, how is inequality today?
It's poor. It's poor. Okay, I'm not gonna disagree with you at all.
But why?
It's poor because I think because of the incentives that companies currently have. Like they have very little incentive to pay workers what they're valued because there's already a minimum wage. Like the government has said this is the least amount.
It's because there's already a minimum wage?
Potentially. If there's already a minimum wage dictated, then
it could be because they want to buy back stocks by the millions of dollars, billions of dollars even.
Say again?
It couldn't be because they want to buy back stocks by the billions of dollars and they really have no real motivation to reinvest it into their workers. The only motivation they have is bottom line profits and pumping up their stock price. And then they'll turn around to their employees. I'm sure this happens to plenty of people. They turn around to their employees and they're just like, oh yeah, we just got a huge, AT&T is laying people off right now, people off.
Okay.
And they bought back, I think I saw the other day, $3.5 billion worth of stock. They're laying people off. They just got a whole bunch of extra money. Like, where are we going wrong? If you disagree that these things are happening and you think good things are happening,
how does buying back stock equal more money?
Buying back stock pumps up stock price, and executives' compensation is directly tied to stock price, not workers' compensation.
That doesn't give the company enough money to pay everybody. Buying back stock has nothing to do, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
You were given a tax cut for a specific reason. We were told, not even that. We were sold a bill of goods because there was no specific reason for this tax cut. They just gave them a tax cut, which was dumb. They should have made sure that this got reinvested in the companies and especially in the people. And it's not.
So where I disagree with you specifically is that if you're going to do these things, you have to build it so that the incentive is to support the worker.
How do we
Nobody
do that?
ever does that.
How do we do that?
Remember, I mean, this was a while ago, but I laid
Socialism.
out. No, not socialism. A mandate.
Sorry, weren't you
Right.
just
So
right?
government regulation mandating, right? Like some sort of
mandating the reinvestment in R&D.
Agreed.
Or right?
Agreed.
Like I do. Hold on. Here's the thing.
agree.
Although
agree.
I align very much with libertarian values, I do believe at the end of the day that corporations and people are incentive based. So if you give them incentive to invest in things that you would like them to invest in, like education, like research and development, like better wages, if you give them that incentive, they will do that. The problem in government right now, overall, not just libertarian or Democrat or Republican or Green Party or communist or socialism, is that nobody sets up a structure in which it gives the people the incentive, and when I say people, I mean corporations in this case, to do what we want them to do.
Oh, dude. You know what people should do? Workers should band together and sort of unite their influence and their say and their power to try and negotiate better terms then with companies. That seems reasonable, right?
I think, although I agree with you, it does seem reasonable. I think you'll get a better result with the government by using incentive-based programs as opposed to just a bunch of people banding together saying we're not going to work anymore.
Union of people.
So
that's
listen,
what I pay the government for, right? That's what I pay my fucking congressperson for.
I don't even
for me, right? Sure. They don't do that. Correct?
I don't even disagree with you, Caleb, but I think we're going to disagree on what I'm about to say.
Go ahead.
I don't disagree with Caleb that there doesn't need to be unions if we can just use government. So to use government should flex its muscles even more. Make sure workers are getting their fair share.
No,
represent them as a union. Flex that muscle.
They should be building incentive-based programs. Like, if you want this tax cut, this is how you spend the money. Not how specifically, but it should be invested into research and development. X amount of dollars need to be invested into.
You still have to enforce that. That's what I'm talking about. You have to
understand that.
That's my flexing muscle.
I don't think the appropriate answer is to have a bunch of people band together and say we're not working anymore. That doesn't benefit the company or the people, or in a lot of cases.
Hey. But what if the owners are robbing the workers blind? They're doing that in the steel industry right now. They're about to go on strike.
Then what they need to do is a class action lawsuit. There has to be some legal ground to say you guys are running this company into shit and it's affecting more than just you.
And I'm not trying to be an ass, but like you don't think that they've explored all the options before a strike? You don't think people don't want to strike? You don't think people want to work? You think these people are looking to strike? These are hardworking people. Like, I'm sure this is their wit's end. I feel like, and you're allowed to rebut right after I say this, I feel like you're like almost like attacking them that like they haven't even tried to go the lawsuit route. Maybe they have. Like, maybe they're at their wit's end, you know? You're not giving them any credit for like the process they've been through. I don't know.
I feel like Caleb's biggest argument against unions is that there's a lot of powerful unions that kind of don't really set out to do what they were intended to do anymore.
Sure.
But I mean,
but a big business is a lot of power too, and it can be abused.
If you were to leave that up to government, or if you were to leave that up to the business itself, it's all going to get corrupted somehow in some way.
That's right.
I don't think that's grounds to dismiss unions as a whole.
If owners and private industry, if we can admit that they can be corrupt, then why are we not allowed to be corrupt, but at least have some power behind it? So just because sometimes unions can be corrupt, that means workers can't unite at all. They're not allowed to have any way to flex their muscle. Come on,
I'm not
saying you are, Caleb. I'm just sure.
No, they've outlived their purpose.
But right, specifically, I feel like what you're saying and what you're projecting onto me is that I'm saying that unions just shouldn't exist. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I believe that there's much better methods to getting the desired result than a union, because just like a government, just like a big company, a union can become corrupt.
Right, I agree. We all agree.
I think there needs to be better avenues provided by the government and the private company to have these discussions, to be able to understand the cause and effect of everything that's going on. And at the end of the day, everyone is greedy. We all have to remember that. Right? To sit here and say that the small worker wouldn't take, an extra paycheck would be ludicrous. Just like to sit here and say that the big company wouldn't buy back its own stock to pump up the value is ludicrous.
Right.
So what we have to do is find ways that incentivize all parties involved to the desired result. That's something I feel we do not do, and specifically the unions. I'm not sure that they have the full grasp and understanding of how to do that appropriately. Now, I would say that most people don't, but at least with a private company, like they do understand that, hey, at the end of the day, we got to make fucking money, right? So if you could just turn those same wits and that same level of intelligence into, hey, at the end of the day, we need to make sure that everyone's taken care of, we'd be more successful.
And I'm perfectly fine with accepting living in a world where at the end of the day, a business needs to just make money. But that means that we do need to be careful with the economy we create. Like if we want to do that, that's fine. We just have to like be careful with what we create. We have to make sure people are still protected. Like I don't know if I brought this up to Kale before we were casting. I'm not sure. Or maybe I brought it up to John earlier today or someone I was talking to. It was probably sometime earlier today, but you know, I showed him a video of like that Richard Ojeda guy from West Virginia.
Yep.
And I was sitting there and we were talking after we watched the ad together. And I was like, politics should be about what's best for the people. Like when we talk about coal, there are ways. I know it's a joke because Trump had brought it up a bunch of times because he never actually had a real plan for it. So people mocked him for it, but clean coal is a real thing. Like there are ways that we can still use coal, harvest coal, and still try to be as responsible as we can. Right. And still coal is a big deal. Hang on. I understand, but coal is a huge deal to the people of West Virginia. And like right now they're just straight hurting and everything that we've tried hasn't worked. So I don't know, like, why don't we just go up to a coal business and say, you keep doing what you're doing. We are not going to make you carry the burden at all of making sure that your stuff is clean coal. Just produce the way you were doing it. But we're going to work with you and the government is going to spend taxpayer money to make sure this coal can be as clean as possible. And the government takes that burden on, but the business continues to run. People still have their jobs and we can work towards maybe phasing that out in a better way where people aren't revolting and voting for people like Donald Trump because they're so upset that nobody's fighting for him. Like there's got to be ways government can
I feel like you're coming from the premise of let's not vote another Donald Trump and less of let's find a better way to do this, right? And at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, I truly believe that private companies and private people are better at innovating and incentivizing than the government, right? Is that a fair statement?
No, I think that both do a good job in different lanes over the years. Military has gone far ways for R&D in every country.
Oh yeah, but to be fair, right? The R&D. Hold on. The R&D arm of the government is in fact private business. Like, let's not kid ourselves here.
I would actually bet that
Project, and that's
Manhattan Project.
I would actually bet that.
Sir.
Yeah, I would actually bet that a lot more R&D has probably come out of the military over the years, just because they get so much wild spending. Like they get so much more wild spending than any one private entity could.
All right, would you say? Yeah. I mean. All right, I guess
it's the money, man.
Private enterprise.
Yeah, but who's doing the actual innovating?
Get us to the moon.
Now, if you want to talk about how efficient it is,
but again, my
government's probably throwing a lot more dollars per.
Hold on. But who's doing the actual innovating? Is it the military, or is it the military saying, "Hold on"? It's the military saying, "We need to solve this problem for this much money. Who can do it?" That's what I see personally.
Okay.
Today, right?
Okay. Why wouldn't
I'd probably agree with that.
Yeah, listen, if you build an economy
specifically what I'm saying there though is that it's private business and it's private individuals that are coming up with the actual inventions and the R&D specifically.
Military has come up with so much stuff, dude. I think you're saying like it's all private.
No, what I'm saying is the military saying
field of science. You're very wrong.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of money. The government spends a lot of money on research that could go nowhere.
Caleb, you're right is
private companies don't do that because they don't want to. They don't take on that much risk. They don't invest that much if they're not guaranteed to get a return out of it. They won't explore too far if they're not guaranteed, or they can't convince the stockholders we're getting money back from this.
Just because something's profitable, I think
that's where privite enterprise fails.
The economy,
and that's a fair point, but
but not sure.
Bringing that to market is a private enterprise specifically.
So yeah, and you set up the market however you want. So if you set up your market for that, then sure, yeah, that's going to be.
Well, why can't we
again,
look at everything else similarly?
And this is always my argument with healthcare. I don't think that profits are necessarily the right. I don't think that we should be incentivizing healthcare with profits. I think that's really stupid in this day and age. Because it's just because you have a marketplace that squeezes efficiency out of every dollar as far as like pushing it back to the investors. That doesn't mean that's going to like help. That's going to be great for the bottom line of the actual healthcare for the person, you know? So that's kind of my thought process on that.
Yeah, there needs to be some level of balance, in my opinion.
Of course.
You know, government regulation and building an appropriate incentive plan that appeases both the end goal of the government and the people. Mm-hmm. I put them in 3 separate categories, right? The people, the government, and then private business, right? There needs to be a way to incentivize all 3 to be at least remotely successful. That's the only, you know, until somebody comes up with a crazy type of way to govern, that's really the goal, right? And I think to your guys' point, the system is currently still built and set up to only incentivize the government and private business. There's no incentive to help the person in this triangle of society.
What do you mean there's no wait, I don't understand.
Well, to your point, right? Most of the issues that you talk about specifically, Cyril, is for the people. The people are suffering because there's too much taxes. The people are suffering because we have a shit healthcare system. The people are suffering because of XYZ, right? Fill in the blank.
Sure.
What is the incentive?
I would take out too much taxes, but go ahead.
Sure. Whatever you want to pick out. I'm fine with whatever you want to pick out. Right. The point is what is the incentive for anybody to help to help the people, quote unquote? There is not one. There is no incentive because right now, at the end of the day,
I agree.
The government gets a ton of money and capital and investment, if you will, from private business and organizations in order to then turn a profit themselves based on regulations, correct? Right. There's no incentive in that system.
The government
for people. No. I think the government doesn't turn the profit. What I'm saying is private business does, and private business does because of the regulations that the government puts in, and because the government puts in those regulations, they get money from private business.
Yeah.
Right? So where is the incentive for the people?
No. I mean,
to help the people. To help the people. There is none. Right? And to me, you know, to prove, to kind of go back full circle to the whole union idea, is that although I do believe for the most part unions have served their purpose and don't really need to exist a whole lot right now, it doesn't mean they don't need to exist in the future or now, but for the most part they don't need to. I wonder if that's kind of how, now that I'm coming full circle, that's how I view third parties. They're kind of like the labor unions for the workers. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are getting behind a certain cause, whether it's the Green Party, the Working Families Party, the Libertarian Party, and it kind of forces the big two to kind of sway their opinions on certain things.
Sure. I said this, if I can say it really quickly.
Sure. Okay.
I get you.
I said earlier, whenever Caleb said, unions, in some ways, in some areas may have lived out their purpose. And I said, I might agree with you if we can have government replace that and be like the muscle flexor on making sure things are going the way they should. You can't just let, private, you can't just have complete laissez-faire. That's crazy. That's nuts. That nobody wants that.
Absolutely. I agree with you, by the way.
But I'll go even farther than that. I am a social democrat. Like, I think that, we should have complete capitalism and we should have a private market in many ways, not always, but many ways. And then we should just have government making sure that market's being responsible to our workers, to our environment, right? Like that should be the balance. Here is where I agree in this scenario, where I would say agree with Caleb and say, hey, now we can get rid of unions. When we can draw the battle lines between private industry and government and not have big interest in money influence government, then yes, then and only then can we get rid of unions. But until the whole game is rigged still against workers in a way where big lobbyists can go in and basically sway our own representatives who are supposed to represent us. Thanks a lot, Chris Collins. Stupid mother. Anyways, that's when, you know what, workers can unionize as long as the game is rigged against them, because I think it kind of is right now. And by the way, when the game is rigged against you, and the game is already rigged against you because you're of a lower income, like, the haves have it easier in life. That's just the way it is. And it's the way it should be, right? Like, nobody's for equality of outcome. That's ridiculous. The haves are always going to be there, but like, the haves don't need to have someone fighting on their behalf usually. Not necessarily always, but like, usually, like, they're the ones that are in position of power, in control. Like, they don't need someone, they don't need a check on, or we just don't need government cozying up to the haves. Like, government should be fighting for the have-nots, who are probably more likely than not to get abused by the system. Like, and we should have the government come in, as long as the battle lines are drawn, come in and make sure that businesses are doing right by the workers, the environment, and all the other things that we want them to do right by. Then and only then would I say, like, oh, unions can go away then. But we don't live in that world, so it gets tough.
It does. And I absolutely get what you're saying. I guess for me, when it comes to unions, right now, and this is based on, more or less personal experience and what I understand of a lot of unions, is that the frustration with unions is that you have to protect everybody in the union, regardless of what they did or did not do. And that's where, for me, I get like, ugh, if you're a piece of shit worker, you shouldn't be protected by the union. The union shouldn't have to protect you if you're a legit,
I agree,
terrible worker. And that's right. the incentive for the union. And again, I go back to incentive-based policy and incentive-based practices. The incentive for the union is they have to protect everybody, and to me, that's kind of poor, right? Because you're not really protecting the guy who actually does bust his ass. You're protecting the guy who doesn't really want to bust his ass, but still wants the same amount of money as the guy that does bust his ass.
Yeah, but unions still do a good for most of the people that are I'm not going to say most people are hardworking, but most people do what they're supposed to. They show up when they're supposed to be there. They miss work sometimes, but they're there. They do their job. Like, they still should be fought for too. You don't have to like show up like Rocky every day and give 120%. Like, that's ridiculous. There are situations and there are jobs even at where you work, Caleb, that are pretty soul crushing. And like,
absolutely. Sure. And I still show up 120%. Exactly.
I'm sure you had bad days or days where you
grind through.
No, of course, and you're expected to, and I would expect that as well.
But you're literally just saying that you shouldn't have to.
No, I didn't say that. I said there are things that are going to happen. Okay. You shouldn't have to be this. Most workers are good workers. Full stop. Like, yeah. Right, and so like I feel like a lot of the times we're complaining about the few. Like, sure, that's not wrong, but like, just because of the few, we're gonna ruin it for all these people that are doing it the way they are supposed to be doing.
No, but it's incumbent upon the union to sit there and say those few suck. I'm fighting for everybody. And in a lot of situations that I've personally heard, that doesn't necessarily happen. It does in some unions, but a lot of them, it seems like we're here to protect. And typically, what type of people do you need to protect? It's not the good employees that you have to protect. No, you spend more time, effort, and money on protecting shit employees when what you should be doing is saying, no, fuck you, you're not a good employee. The company has a point here. We're going to get rid of you. And because we're getting rid of you, we're going to spend our time, money, effort focusing on our good employees that deserve good benefits, that deserve good pay. That's what it seems. That's what seems like does not happen. I guess that's my point.
You're right, dude. Let's just go back to child labor.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm convinced.
That's not what I'm saying.
Chad, how did you get that out of that? You just being 100% troll, or
no? I just want to keep things in context pre-unions at all. Just saying.
I'm not saying unions should not exist. I'm saying that.
I also,
and maybe I came off that way initially. I didn't mean to. What I'm saying is the incentive,
I understand.
For unions, for government, for private business needs to align in such a way that everybody benefits as much as possible. There are going to be times where private business suffers, government suffers, workers suffer. But the problem isn't to the point of zero, is that workers suffer way too much compared to everybody else. That's a problem. And I think the is on the government.
For that to actually happen,
Go ahead.
You need politicians that actually give a good goddamn.
Which is why, but at the same time, don't you also need an educated populace to take the time to figure out what the hell's going on?
Absolutely. Maybe the fact that we
part.
don't have the educated populace explains our politicians, because perhaps they do actually represent us.
Maybe you're right. You're 100% right.
Maybe the politicians are slimy because, well, not slimy. You know what I mean?
Are slimy.
I meant to say shitty, but slimy came out.
I saw something. We've been going on for a little over an hour, I think, now. So this is the last thing I'll say, and we can wrap it up. I saw something last week that really made me think about how crazy this world is that we live in. And it's actually a good thing in the long run. And it helps me. And this is the thing that helps me sleep at night these days. So basically, Donald Trump on Friday tweeted about the Kavanaugh accuser and how he tweeted it couldn't have happened because if it actually did happen, then her or her loving parents would have reported it to the local officials at the time. And since there was no reporting, then this assault couldn't have happened. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that blew me away. Right when he tweeted that out, immediately after, a worldwide trend on Twitter started. It was a big deal, and it was why I didn't report. And it was women expressing things that have happened in their life, even men too, women and men, expressing how they were assaulted at one point and they didn't report it for one reason or another. And here's my point.
Well, if the Catholic Church has showed us
what helps me sleep at night is the fact that the cell phones and the power of communication and the power of instant communication is going to give power to the people more than we realize. And it's going to come at a certain point. And what makes me sleep at night is it's inevitable. It's literally inevitable. The president tweets out something that most of us would cringe at the very least, and say, at the very least, that probably wasn't a good idea, Mr. President. And immediately a worldwide trend happens, not even a US one. It was tens of thousands of people tweeting out why they didn't report an assault that happened to them in their life. It's mind blowing. The times we live in compared to 20, 30 years ago, the power of the people is so much more
compared
than
to 10 years
ago. The
Me
Too movement, exactly, these things put a smile on my face. Are we going through some growing pains? Sure. But for the most part, these are going to be good in the long run. The power of the people is so much more when you can communicate so quickly and point out injustices. And I truly think that this is a thing that might be able to replace a lot of government regulation. We can self-regulate ourselves. Not yet, and not everything. But there's going to be a lot of areas where we might be able to self-regulate. How many times have the mechanic shop I go to around here, when I moved here in 2015, a mechanic is a very important thing in your life. Your car is a really important thing to you to get around and to exist. So I always make sure take a point to find a good mechanic. And I scoured the internet. I scoured reviews and I read a whole bunch of things and I found a really good mechanic. And I did that because of crowd, reviewing and crowd sourcing stuff. And I just love it. I love it. I just hope we don't shoot ourselves in the foot before we get there, before we get to being able to self-regulate ourselves and be more fair across the board because of it, but we'll see.
Well, the problem is there are also it isn't that there are no downsides to that.
No, that's true. That's 100% correct.
You know what I mean?
We're dealing with some of the downsides now. I'm sure there's going to be new ones that pop up before it even. We're not going to see it in our lifetime. How about that? I think we're not going to see as good as a system as there probably could be. I mean, I guess it could always get better though. So I don't know. Things are looking up. I don't know. Stuff like this motivates me and encourages me. So puts a smile on my face when we can all react to cringeworthy presidential tweets right away.
and I'll put a little addendum there too that brings it back to the union thing real quick, just because it is kind of. I mean, to some extent, unions aren't needed so much because we're able to give anybody a platform these days.
Right.
Anyone, if they're really getting seriously mistreated and they have it well documented, all they have to do is bring it to the internet, and people will respond.
How many times, Chad, have you seen on Reddit people posting we haven't seen my brother in a day, or have you seen my dog, and it gets upvoted to the front page?
You know what? One of my favorite subreddits on Reddit right now, it's r/legal advice. I'm amazed.
Oh, sure. I like that one too.
Amazed and astounded the time that people take and the interest that they
take.
You
can learn a lot just by reading the posts, man.
Well, you read. Oh, absolutely. I've learned a bunch of things, but put these people in the shoes they're in now, but 20 years ago, they're lost. They're hopeless. But all they have to do these days is bring it to a community that loves participating in stuff like this, and they get the best advice that they could get. It's incredible.
It's a great thing. Now, in the meantime,
I feel like at some point, one of these days, we need to talk about open source, because that's a lot of what's going on. Like, if I can get legal advice open source style,
Right.
like, what does that do for the local
huge.
town lawyers? You
Right.
know, I'm not going to them and paying $500 for a retainer fee or $1,000 or whatever the amount is.
Right.
And that's what I was
getting this advice online.
This comes real full circle to what I was going to say earlier, Caleb, and I forgot. I was going to say that poor guy who's an ex-felon who just works a few hours a week. If he gets mistreated, he can't hire a lawyer to sue. That's the handicap there. It's expensive. But hey, if he gets free legal advice and can figure out what buttons to press at the right government building, that's great. Like, that's awesome. Like, if he's obviously mistreated, like, so yeah, that's a great thing. I think that's.
But what does that do for the overall economy?
Oh, it helps it a lot. He still keeps money in his pocket, and he fights for his rights to get paid what he probably should have been, or be in the safe setting that he wanted to be in. You know, it's better.
Let's trim the fat. Unnecessary services.
What I was gonna say. What about the lawyers, Cyril? You're taking money off.
Fuck the lawyer.
I don't care.
Go.
The money doesn't disappear. Give me a break. Cry me a river.
Do
Lawyers
different
have
work.
had a nice gravy train for
So are
a
you
long
saying
time.
10, 15 years from now we don't need lawyers? We're just gonna go.
No, that's ridiculous. A lot of this stuff. I don't know.
It's a fucking question.
No, and I wasn't trying to be offensive to you, dude. Calm down. I was just saying, I don't think that'll happen. Do you think it'll happen? Is that why you got offended?
No, what I'm saying is when you go to these small towns and these small areas and there's only one lawyer,
right?
If he doesn't get paid enough, he's not going to be there. And then what? You think you're going to be able to just go to the next town over to get another lawyer?
I mean, that's why it'd be helpful that you could just get free legal advice on the internet, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if you get all this free legal advice off the internet, small town lawyers won't exist anymore. And then what are those small town people going to? What do you mean, cry me a river? You're all about the people.
A lot of these. A lot of the legal advice you get from the subreddit usually ends with you still having to get a lawyer. You're not presenting yourself in court.
And second of all, I don't think this is something that can clean happen before like we die. Like no lawyers have to exist. I know that's not what Caleb's saying. I know that's not what you're saying. I know.
So then don't take it out of perspective.
Making it clear that is not what Caleb is saying. I'm just saying that I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, the Gansvert lawyers.
Right, Chad.
Caleb, are you thinking of all sides here? Like, what about the money that these potentially poor people who are being mistreated, probably at a higher clip than the haves, the have-nots are being mistreated? What about these people that keep money in their pocket by not having to hire that lawyer? Like, they're saving a ton of money by not having to hire that lawyer. Cry me a river. Lawyers are rich. You've ridden the gravy train. Give me a break.
Generalization. Poor generalization.
Adjust.
All lawyers.
I'm seeing McDonald's.
All lawyers are, according to Cyril.
I'm seeing McDonald's kiosk. Oh, well, that's not. Well, some do good nonprofit work. Relax. All right. But I'm seeing a lot of McDonald's touchscreen kiosks.
Do that. Okay.
All right. Well, come on. Really? Are you really going to be on the lawyer side here? All right. Listen. I've seen a lot of McDonald's kiosks replacing McDonald's workers, and they have to deal with it. People who work shit jobs have to deal with turnover all the time and being mistreated at work. So give me a break. Cry me a river. Figure it out.
Wow.
There are people that are way worse off in our society. So if lawyers want to cry me a river, go for it.
Unbelievable. The socialist strikes again. Communist. Sorry. Communist.
How is that socialist at all?
No, sorry.
They're
I corrected
halves.
myself.
They're clearly halves.
I said communist.
How is that communist at all? They're clearly halves. All I'm saying is don't just
triggering you. I'm just triggering you.
And I have been triggered. All right, we'll end it there.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys being on the side of the rich people all the time. Makes me look good.
Oh my God, you're so ridiculous.